How are we not doing a two-parter? Like, what is happening? You're letting me down. Like, why am I
Do we
on
have
this
time?
couch?
How much time do you guys have? What's your heart out? I'm particularly a big horror fan, to be clear.
See your spooky sweater.
Like, the way I bought this, and people were like, that'll be fun for Halloween. I'm like, you don't know me.
This is January through December.
Yeah, this is a year-round sweater.
Poll. Yeah.
Just so you know, ghosts are around all the time. I don't know if that's true. I've had experience with a ghost. I don't want to. Have you ever had an experience with a ghost?
I have not, but I have a deal with all ghosts. That I believe that they exist. I do not doubt them. They never need to prove themselves to me
Very that.
or anyone I love. My wife was putting down our oldest daughter and going to sleep, putting her to sleep, not putting her down. She's still with us.
You're very casual.
Super clear, yeah. And Addison looked up and said, "Mommy," and Heather said, "Yes, dear." It's like, "Who's that boy on the ceiling?"
No.
That is a true story.
And then you
Who's
moved?
the boy on the ceiling? And I was like, roll him up. Let's go.
I like to think that same thing of like, I think ghosts are like, she's got enough going on. We don't need to.
We don't. Leave her be. Leave her be.
I'm so excited to have you here today because I am a big horror fan. And like, you've had such a career in horror.
Hey, have I though? Like when you say that,
Okay.
have I really? So Scream,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
We all say thank you. Iconic movie. I'm in it. I get it. 13 Ghosts.
I love 13 Ghosts. I know you don't think it's that good.
It's. I don't think it's that good.
Gotta be shit me.
But I do know it's sneaky popular.
Yeah.
So at conventions, I'll sign 13 Ghost things all the time. And I always make the joke. It's really a joke. It's a bit. Terrible movie. It's a glass house. It's a portal to hell. Terrible movie. And the more you say that, the more outraged fans get.
Because here's the thing, though. I think why that movie still hooks me, because I watched it again like 3 days ago,
Right.
is they introduced this like the Zodiac of the Damned
Sure.
or whatever. I know I got that wrong and people are going to be like, that's not what it's called. I'm sorry. But the fact that the production design, the character design is so
vivid.
evocative.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, right? And so I remember seeing it in theaters and my partner and I talked the whole way home. We've been together a very long time for context.
I mean, yes, that's clear.
But we talked the whole way home about what we thought the stories were for each of the characters. And that was so exciting. And then the DVD came out and it came with like, you could click through and see the stories and none of them matched. And we were like weirdly outraged about it and then never looked at those again. As if like, they're not
This
canon.
is stupid. Who wrote this?
You know what I mean?
Crap.
And I'm just like, nope, that's not my story. We're going back to ours.
You know what's fun? That they're making a TV show of that. And I think that makes sense. That Zodiac, though, that sort of collection of 13 Ghosts, super interesting. Backstories are really interesting. I think that's a great idea for a show. So that's 2 horror movies
Is that all you're counting?
in 30 years. I mean, 5 nights
Yeah.
now.
Right.
In the last 2 years.
Okay. But also, I would say that, like, first of all, Scooby-Doo is deep. Like, it's a lighter horror, but it's definitely a horror thing. You're doing all the rubber masks and the, like, spooky, scary stuff.
I'll have whatever he's having.
So I think that's, like, kid-level horror.
Yes, I mean, for sure. It's kids' first introduction into that kind
Sure.
of spooky movie or genre film. Yeah.
And, like, wasn't your first film horror? Because I fell into blind spot by watching Ghoulies 3 Ghoulies Go to College.
That is not... That, first of all, you can't say that's my first movie. My first movie is Serial Mom.
Was it?
Are you a serial killer?
The movie I hijacked a SAG after card
Okay.
was Ghoulies Go to College.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah,
So
because
I
you
was
don't really
a
have, like...
non-union extra.
Gotcha.
I have no lines.
You have a name, though. You're
I do,
credited.
yeah. I named myself. I think I put that in there.
Did that give you that extra bump?
Yeah.
Love that for you.
No, the funny thing is on that movie, I'm a non-union extra. They're filling out this fraternity and they had to reshoot the entire first day of work. Long story short, every day I'd be on set and I would say, if you say 5 consecutive words that you have to get Taft-Hartley. Taft-Hartley allows you in the union. You can't do union work. Unless you have a union card, it's hard to get a union card because you can't get union work. And so the thing that bypasses that is Taft-Hartley. And I would say 5 consecutive words on every single rehearsal the entire time we shot. I think we shot for like 19 days. And I would be like trying to weave in these 5 words. And on the last day, I basically knew they had to reshoot. I knew that was my last chance to get the union card. And I basically said to them, I'm not coming in unless you make it worth my while. And,
That's amazing.
And at some point, the UPM's like, you're never going to work in this town again. If you do this, I swear to God, I'm going to crush your career. And at that point, I was pot committed because I had told 10 people.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, I'm never going to work if I do it. But I'm like, I made this excuse. Long story short, I got the card. And then I got one of the actors from the movie. I told the story. He told his dad. His dad was an agent. That agent signed me. And I was off and running.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
But you did shoot that and then Serial Mom.
Yes.
That was the best. I'm not trying to be like, well, to correct you in your own filmography, but I was just like, I want to make sure I have the timeline right.
Yeah.
But that's fascinating because, like, you know, I've been friends with a lot of actors, especially in my 20s, and everybody trying to figure out how to make that breakthrough. Like,
hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It's really hard now. It's always been difficult, but I think it's harder now. Only because I'm trying to watch my kid go through it, and it's just, look, this career, I think that, you know, people try to make it about these movies or this moment, or, you know, the reality is the hardest thing to do is survive 35 plus years in the business. That's the hardest thing. It's like, can you spend your whole life doing what you love? It's really hard, really complicated.
Right. I'm so glad to have you talk about that because I do want to keep going back to that because I think part of it is, as someone who writes about entertainment, write about film, we like to feed into this fantasy that actors are like sitting at home reading scripts and going, this is the one I choose for my legacy. And like, I as someone who has a lot of friends who are actors know that it's like, I have time and this is paying work.
Yeah, literally, if I said when I came out of acting school, I went to Circle and Square here in New York. And if somebody had offered me the first day I got out a soap opera, I might still be on The Young and the Old, or The Restless, or whatever it's called now. Like that.
Sure.
That could have easily been my journey. I was lucky enough. I got a John Waters classic movie called Serial Mom. I love that film. Played Kathleen Turner's son, and I started a career that was on that path. But listen. There are times in my life where I was like, we sold our house, we sold our cars, we downsized. This idea of being famous,
right? Like
only
that's
works
protective
as
shell.
long as you're working,
right?
And then all of a sudden you spend 2 or 3 years not working, and life becomes real quick.
I know. For me, I come from a family that we very much identify with our work, which is like a work-life thing that I personally struggle with, where like, if I'm not working, it's like, who am I?
100%.
Is that something that you struggle with?
100%. So I was, I found acting as an 8th grade kid. I was obese. I had a severe learning disability. I wore glasses. It was the one place I could be funny, which was my defense mechanism around bullying, and be rewarded. And so, when you find your thing, when you find something that an adult, when you're that kid on the outside looking in, says, hey, you're good at something.
Yeah.
Super powerful, right? And that's all I wanted to do my whole life. And that's all I chased. From that moment on, I was in college, but all I was doing was theater arts. And I finally dropped out of like a normal college experience, junior college experience, and then went full-time acting school. And then, at some point I started to work, and like around Scooby-Doo, you're like, all right, well, I'm going to keep working. Mm-hmm. I guess I'll golf during the day. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm not supposed to be golfing. I mean, I grew up in the Midwest. My dad worked himself to the bone. And then like you realize that I identified as an actor. Mm-hmm. And when I wasn't doing that, the question becomes, well, who are you?
Sure.
And what do you have to offer? And my answer to that was to be a great dad. I was at soccer practice. I was coaching soccer. I was driving my kids to school. I was picking them up. I was being a good husband. I was cooking. I was doing all these things. But at the end of the day, there's this dignity. Joe Biden talks about the first time he ran, the dignity of work, which resonated with me so deeply that without work, I was like, well, who am I?
Yeah.
And there's times in my life I would call my agent twice a day. I'd call my manager twice a day to see what was going on.
Because it must also be frustrating from the perspective of an actor where like you kind of have to wait for the opportunity in that regard.
Yeah. You're literally,
I'm here, I'm ready.
Yeah. And I'm like I just came off a hit movie. And also I was always, for so much of my career, I was number 2 on the call sheet, number 5 on the call sheet. Like I was very rarely number 1 on the call sheet. So for me, on top of that, I had this real drive to be the star, to be the lead, to be number 1 on the call sheet. And throw that into the mix of waiting for people to say yes and wanting to prove yourself and wanting like having a chip on my shoulder, being jealous, like so much envy in my life about other people's careers that it just leads to like depression, idle hands, I was bored.
Right.
And so if I found out and listen, I say all that because if there's a kid out there trying to be an actor or a performer or an artist or whatever, like you have to expand your horizon and know that you're trying to do this your entire life. And the answer is not to define yourself by work because there's no satiation.
Yeah.
No amount of work is going to satiate the urge for more work.
Right.
And so you have to figure out what to do in between those times that fills your life with joy, with purpose, with community.
Mm-hmm.
Like building community became essential for me. I started teaching class. I started like, okay, I got my life in order. Like we were living beyond our means for a long time. We got that in order. And then I was like, okay, well, how am I going to fill my life? And that became about like, oh, I want to be surrounded by people I love. And that's why I play D&D. And that's why I do.
I'm so glad
you
said.
You just said that. You dropped D&D right before we were talking. I was like, I heard you.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I have to confess, because I don't want to have any kind of stolen valor on this. I do play D&D.
Yeah.
I did not for like 20 years. I played in high school.
Right, sure.
Partially to impress my boyfriend. I had played before him.
Sure.
But he was like, oh, my friends and I have a game. And I was like, totally. And then once we had been dating a while, I was like, I don't need to keep doing this to have him in my life, so I'm going to stop.
Right.
And we have been together since then, and he has played the whole time.
Oh, he has? Oh, good for him.
Yes. And like I've been in the room because I enjoy watching my friends like
Sure.
become different people.
And it's storytelling.
Yeah.
And it's like you're listening to the story. Yeah.
Totally. But it didn't feel like it was my thing. And I will say I got into it again this past year because of Dimension 20.
Oh, yeah.
Like literally.
How great are they?
They're so, well, we have them
so
here.
good. Oh, yeah, yeah.
One of my coworkers had a lovely conversation with them. I started watching the show. And then I was like, I think I want to try this again, but I'm intimidated to get involved with people who like really know how to play because I haven't played in so long. I don't want
Right.
people being annoyed with me.
Right.
And so he set up a campaign specifically for me and my interests and like a friend group that we were like, they'll be fine. And it's been such a changing thing.
Yeah.
It's very different than when I played before, because when I played before, I was the only girl in a group of guys. And even if they were like, we're happy to have you here, it felt still like I was kind of on the edge of that.
Sure.
And like, yeah, I watched the documentary that you were a part of, Adventure Never Ends. And
yeah.
Yeah, and you talked about the power of that. So I do want to talk about D&D because I do think several of the things you've talked about relate back to that and that power of, like, is there a satisfaction there because you are building your own story and you don't have to, like,
Yeah.
you just have to schedule 5 to 8 adults being
Yeah.
together at the same time.
With all of our schedules.
You know what I
It's
mean?
crazy. So yeah, I don't think it's even that. I actually think it's just being surrounded by people that you like to spend time with. Right? Like some guys will go play poker, some people will go out and play golf, like we're talking about, or like watch a Jets game or whatever. To me, playing Dungeons and Dragons is about being surrounded by people that I've never laughed harder, I've never been more engaged with, and that time spent is like literally what the joy of life is about. Like, I don't know, it's the older I get, the more I appreciate those moments because you're off your phone. You're not worrying about being a dad or a CEO or a husband. You're like literally just there and you're telling the story, which is as old as time. Like sitting around a fire and telling a story is what we've done for, since we've walked upright. So, yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, I'm glad that I let it back into my life
Sure.
because he's been involved in it the whole time.
What a piece of ass your partner is. I mean, listen, he's DMing
Yeah.
and like you need to go home and make out with him. He'd be like, I love you for being my DM.
It's very sweet. Like, truly, he was like, let me come up with something that'll be for you. And so it's basically like...
And that's what I'm so curious. What is that thing?
It's a fantasy Deadwood campaign.
Oh, it is? Oh, that's pretty great.
Like, I'm very into Deadwood. So he's like...
that's so
he's
great.
Really, like, recreated. Like, he's combining things, but it's like...
So good.
Yeah. It's like... It's very thrilling to me, and it's because I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm familiar with this world. And it also just made me feel more comfortable in what I was building. Because I was like, I have...
Because you know that language.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, it was really cool. And our
Telling
friends...
you should literally... Like, I don't know what your thing is as a partner, but, like, take him to dinner, like, make out with him. slow dance with him.
You don't know how giddy he gets, where like we just leveled up again, and I was like, I'm like multi-classing, it's a whole thing. So he was just like, okay, so if you do this, and it's like, yeah, he's
so good.
I truly don't know that he's ever happier than when we were talking about my D&D character.
Who is this man? Like he is.
He's pretty great. He's hung in for a long time.
Yeah.
I do want to talk to you about, so like, because like I think this is helpful, like the idea of like where do you find yourself again, and being able to play in these spaces and finding that. But like in acting, part of I think why, especially your earlier films, where I think why you captivated me at such a young age and the way you perform, both from like Stu and like, I don't get me wrong, I love Serial Mom, but it was like more Stu and Hackers and even 13 Ghosts and like SLC Punk. Like you have this energy that's very manic and you can be very goofy, but within all that, there's this kind of raw vulnerability that I think is what makes these characters really pop off the page. Like, is that something you're aware of?
I'm definitely aware of the energy, especially when I was a kid. Like, I think that, you know, I came up in New York film. I started like in the 90s, right, in New York film. And I had this idea of wanting to be a brilliant actor. And so for me at that age, when I was that kid, I felt like every line, every scene I had to strive for greatness. And it's embarrassing now. Like I didn't understand how to be anything less than full on. But it was out of an earnestness. It wasn't out of like, I want to steal a scene. It was about, this is what this guy's doing.
Right.
And being super engaged with what his objective was, why he was there, what his backstory. Like I had filled every moment with stuff. And it was almost like I had come in with all this work for this number 6 on the call sheet that was like, I didn't know what to do with that energy other than to chew scenery. And it's really lovely. And I watch those performances now and they're hilarious. And the fact that I still got a chance to get beyond that in my career is crazy. I still have it.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have that sort of like veracity in choices and big, bold choices. And even something like Cross or Daredevil, I'm still full of energy.
Sure.
But it's a little more measured than it was when I was young.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about it before. Like I literally just did this podcast called Last Meals. And I cried the entire time. And the idea, to be fair, the idea of this show is like the emotions around food. I was an obese kid. My dad's is very ill with dementia. You know, my mom's older. So like, I'm a dad. There's like all kinds of things in life.
Tap into
yes.
that. Yeah.
And we sat there and we're talking about this emotional connection in food. And all of a sudden I'm like crying for like an hour of the show. It was exhausting. But yeah, I have this sort of like, and I find that in my work right now, I've just been asked a lot to be that sort of, to have these emotional moments. I mean, Twin Peaks, there's a slug line that says breaks down hysterically sobbing or something like that. And like the weight of that, the weight of bringing that to the work, doing it authentically, you know, that means a lot to me. And then Life of Chuck, I've got another moment where I get emotional. That wasn't planned, but it happened. And so, yeah.
You're incredible in Life of Chuck, by the way. Like that was like, that was such a fun movie to watch because I saw it at the TIFF premiere.
You did?
Yes. So like
how incredible was that experience?
That's a great audience. And everybody was like, if you were in that theater, you might have heard me. We were talking before about how I'm noisy during I'm not like whatever. But there was when everything went black after the first act, I went and there was like there was a stillness in the audience and then people started giggling, but it was just like I literally it was like I was being pulled underwater. That was the reaction.
So I remember that experience and the silence, right, of the whole woof, and everything went quiet and then your sound, I remember that.
I literally felt like someone was pulling me underwater. Like that was just my body reacting.
First of all, you and I watch movies exactly the same. I'm literally like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I literally scream at the screen or the TV. I literally am vocal the whole time.
When I make new friends, I'm literally like, we have to see a movie together because I have to know if you're my ride or die. It's gonna depend. That's truly with my partner. The first I took him to a movie before we had been dating like a week because I was like, if you can't hang with me at a movie theater,
But I do think it makes it more. I'm viscerally involved. I do the same thing in theater. So I'll sit and watch theater, and I'm like, oh my god, oh.
My friend and I went
No,
to see
I don't
Oedipus, and
know
we were
why.
like clawing at each other. Like we know how Oedipus is gonna end. We're not, whatever. We get it. But the whole time we were clawing each other like teenagers at a concert because we were just so stressed out by it. We're like,
Yeah.
like,
It's fun. But that experience specifically, if you had said to me, like, name your top 5 theatrical experiences watching a movie, that is one of them. Because seeing it on that screen with that many people, Stephen King's right in front of me. First book I ever read for joy. Mark Hamill's right there. It's like the whole thing was like, and that experience of the silence and the darkness was crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love a film festival crowd because especially because like people were like, we know it's adapted, whatever, but not as many people are familiar with the story, so we just didn't know where that was going to go.
Yeah.
So that was just such a pure,
Shocking, yeah.
it was just such a pure like, oh my god moment.
I love that movie.
It was great.
I think that the whole thing got kind of kicked in the teeth because Mark Hamill deserved to be nominated and acknowledged for his work. Mike Flanagan deserved to be nominated and acknowledged for his work, and somehow it just slipped on through.
Yeah, the campaign thing is a whole beast. I
that
can't
whole
pretend I
thing
understand
is
it
so
all.
gross.
Yeah.
I watched the whole thing happen with George Clooney, The Descendants, and along comes Harvey Weinstein with, the artist.
Oh, the artist, right.
And he's a lovely actor, and the movie's fine. But that whole thing is you're campaigning.
Yeah.
It's as duplicitous as politics is. It's like so disgusting. Anyways.
No, it's a brutal thing.
Yeah.
And I know you've talked a lot about this, and I don't want to like dwell on it because I know it's tough.
Yeah.
But the Tarantino comment.
Oh, yeah.
Because like I think for a lot of us, one, it was so random.
It was weird.
Because it was just truly like let's back to D&D. It was if you rolled an improbability roll and he picked 3 actors at random that he was like, these guys.
And it's a weird choice of guys.
You know what I mean? It was like,
Yeah.
of all the people you're going to beef with, Paul Dano, you, and Owen Wilson, and then he pronounced your name wrong.
I mean, it is literally, the whole thing was very strange. It ends up becoming something really beautiful.
Because you were on a press tour, and then like you have to like deal with that in public. What was that like?
Well, it was lovely because everyone came, screaming out of the corners, going, "Well, dude, you're loved." I mean, I'm walking down the street, people like, that guy can suck it. I mean, it was like, the world sort of like stepped up and was really generous with what they had to say to me on my face, but online, people came out. George Clooney came out. James Gunn, Mike Flanagan, all these people sort of rallied to my defense, even though there's a million people who hate me as an actor. I don't care. It's not like I am not for everyone.
Right.
And never, nor do I want to be. I mean, it's like, I'm happy to be where I'm at in my life, and you don't have to like me. But it's really strange in this industry to be like, I hate that dude's work. And Paul Dano, like, how do you hate, like, he mentioned me.
Right.
But he like went after Paul Dano. Like, how do you do that?
It's so weird.
Yeah.
When things like that happen, I'm like, there's a reason there's a group chat because some of your opinions are not good enough for the public. They don't need to be out there. You know what I mean? Like, no, I have those friends that like I will text them my bad opinions and like we can keep that safe. We don't like everyone because it's like, what good does it do? But I want to say that what I respected about that was that instead of like, just being like, oh, people have their opinions or whatever, like you addressed and you said this sucked and it hurt. And and like I think that's really admirable because I think we're all encouraged to just act like things don't bother us.
Yeah. And well, the funny thing is that it wasn't, I got caught on a live mic. I do conventions all the time, and somebody asked me about being an actor. And I said, the hard thing about being an actor isn't the job. The job's great. It's what we were talking about before. It's the time in between that eats.
It's not the work,
artists.
it's the stairs.
Yeah. It's not the work. It's
Elaine Stritch used to say that. She said, what does the prostitute say about the job? It's not the work, it's the stairs.
Oh, that's so good.
I think about that a lot.
That's really great. Robert Forster used to have an adage, complete random, but Bob used to say, he's like, the advice I give to actors, always take Franklin. He's like, I don't know. It's like LA is really wise. Like, just take Franklin. But so my whole thing was this in my answer was like, it's hard. It's really hard to spend a life doing it. And then, somebody comes out and says something terrible about you. And you have to look, it's not about this moment. It's about duration. It's about distance. It's about fellowship and community. All these things that I didn't know as a kid, but I preach all the time as a grown-ass man because I'm like, I want people to understand that it's not about how your movie opens. It's about the friends you make and the journey itself. And so that got extrapolated, and then it became about me saying it sucked, which ends up being like a really beautiful moment in my life.
I'm glad to hear that, because I truly think we're encouraged to act like these things don't bother us, but then I think that encourages other people that they can't express when they're having a hard time.
Authentically.
Yeah.
Like authentically, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that sucked.
Like, I'm going to forget her name, but there was an Olympian recently that came to a press conference and she said, hey, I'm really sorry I'm late, but I just found out my grandma died. And she just explained that for a moment. And I thought, good for her. Good for her. Instead of, she's supposed to come out and be happy for us and perform this thing. But instead she said, like, look, this is a complicated moment.
Yeah. How great would it be if more people did that?
You know what I mean? Like, I'm very much for that, like, authenticity. Because it's messy, but it's like...
It's not messy. It's just human.
But then we don't have to carry the pressure of, like, always having to be okay or always having to be on or whatever.
Listen, and I say that all the time. I mean, we've got social media that we live in this reflection presented to us all the time of people in perfect lives. And my whole thing is like, that does nobody any good. So I literally tell people, like my father-in-law told me I should sell pharmaceuticals, that we sold our house, that we reset our entire lives because I wasn't making money. I wasn't acting. I wasn't working. And so the idea of like people saying this journey is hard, here's how you get through, you know, find people, find your people, play D&D, like do things outside of just this job. It makes it easier, I think, hopefully for people in the long run.
I think that's beautiful. We are out of time.
No,
but we haven't.
No way.
I know, right?
You didn't ask me anything. You haven't even asked me a question.
We haven't even. I know. We didn't even talk about
anything.
We didn't talk about Scream at all, which is in theory why you're here. I have an idea because we are out of time, and also I have not seen Scream 7 yet, so I can't ask you like good questions about it.
Okay, yeah.
So here's my thought process.
Yeah.
I have theories. I know you're back in Scream 7. I don't know how. So I know you can't talk about spoilers right now.
Right, tough. That'd be tough to do. It opens in
30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pitch various fan theories, including some of my own.
Yeah.
And you don't have to answer. You can just look me in the eye, and I will try to see if I can discern.
Okay, what the
yes, like if
plot
it's
line is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like we're gonna talk telepathically,
Okay,
and that
good.
way we don't break any of the rules.
So I don't say anything.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I'll say so much though. Watch this.
Okay, ready.
Go ahead. Yeah, you
I'm
begin.
excited. Okay, so one fan theory.
Okay.
Stu Macher never died. He's been in hiding, and he's coming back Halloween style for revenge. Okay. Theory 2.
Okay, yeah. Did you pick that whole thing up?
I feel it's great. I think I got it. I feel like I got.
Okay.
You stammered a little, but I hear you.
Let me stay with it.
Okay, ready?
Yeah, go.
Theory 2.
Uh-huh.
Stu Macher is not coming back physically, but becomes a manifestation, either like Sydney's mom in 3 or like Billy Loomis in 5 and 6. Ghost. Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty good, right?
Okay. I'm more excited by the moment. Theory 3.
This is so dumb.
Stu Macher is not
What if
coming
you
back.
actually get one of these right?
Then we cut it to make
If
it look
I
like I'm
throw
a
up
genius.
on the couch, I'm like, whoa.
And they're like, she knew.
You knew everything.
Stu Macher is not coming back, but he has an evil twin, or in this case, a more evil twin that's like, you, Sydney.
He's not evil. Stu Macher is not evil.
See? Okay. Oh
pure
my God,
question.
that reminds me. I did want to ask you a question
yeah.
related to D&D and Stu Macher. If
yeah.
Stu Macher was a D&D character,
He'd be a rogue.
go on.
Yeah, he is, I don't know. He's out for himself, right? He's out for, he was in love with Billy Loomis. The first Husbands of Horror. We didn't even talk about that.
I know. I can't believe
How
it.
are we not doing a two-parter? Like, what is happening? You're letting me down. Like, why am I
Do we
on
have
this
time?
couch?
How much time do you guys have? What's your heart out? We're a little time. We're just
Yes, we're the first Husbands of
looking
Horror.
at the continuity.
And so he's in love with Billy Loomis. And so he's like, we'll do anything for him. He's the sidekick.
Yeah. That's the thing. Rewatching that movie, you're so funny the whole way through, but I feel like the problem I have with Scream, as much as I love the franchise, they can't ever beat the reveal of the killers in that one.
Hard.
And it's not just that it was like, oh my God, it's 2. It's like the chemistry you two have. Because previously you're kind of like chill and goofy with each other.
Right.
But there's like such an intense chemistry in that. And I'm curious if like, were you aware of that in the room? Like,
No. I mean, listen, I have no idea what happened in the edit. I do know that the three of us sat there for weeks on end, covered in blood every single night. And we had set such a high level of energy at some point.
That you had to keep meeting.
Guilty. Yeah. That I think that we were then bound to meet that for the next, whatever, 21 days or whatever that sequence was. Which at the end of the day ends up becoming a pretty iconic scene in horror. But a lot of that's Wes Craven, a lot of that's the commitment of the three of us, and a lot of us is just like, we got stuck really high and then RPMs were just pinned. So there was really no way to ratchet it down. You can't like go bananas.
Yeah.
You know, what is it? Horror movies make more interesting.
Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative. Stop it, Billy, would you, all right? I can't take anymore. I'm feeling a little woozy here.
Like, you know, we're just screaming at each other in the first opening sequence. And so like the whole time you have to be that high.
It's so good. And it's like, I know you've talked about some of the lines in that, but like, I think part of what makes it so good is that it feels far less scripted than the rest of it, which like, I love that movie. That's not a critique, but like things like when you're like, you hit me with the phone, dick.
Hit me with the phone, dick.
I know you've said is improv.
Yeah.
But like, what was it like finding those moments? Did you feel free to do that?
I do think that, look, one of the great things about Wes Craven in that moment was that he wanted it as written, and Kevin was there the whole time. Like, they wanted it as written, and then they wanted us to give options. And for me, what that meant is I would improv a lot. So,
sure.
You know, I improv the whole movie. Some of it stayed, some of it went, but they had the ability to sort of like go, okay.
My mom and dad are gonna be so mad.
Us adding our idiosyncratic moments to these characters made the movie feel full.
Yeah.
Right? And so to their credit, they're like, we want that. And, you know, it doesn't always happen. I mean, so many of our great filmmakers are like, that's not on the page. I don't want it. It's my vision of the movie or else. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that I think that's personally, my opinion is that you're discounting the fact that I've been an actor since I was 14 years old. You know, if you say to your DP, this is the exact shot I want. Well, your DP's been doing shots since he was 14 years old, right? Or she was 14 years old. So that you're just limiting the creative process. And to me, that creative process should be expansive, not throttled.
You don't know what you're cutting off if you don't if you will have those
Yes,
moments.
and is so powerful in so many ways.
Yeah, it's been interesting because like as a kid, like obviously I just thought it was cool and whatever, but it's been fun to see the franchise and like especially that you and Skeet have been really open about the idea of like reading those characters as having a kind of rope or Y2 Mama Tambien dynamic where like they can't deal with their feelings with each other, and so we're acting out in other ways.
I don't think we've gone that deep. I think we were at a con and somebody said you're the first husbands of horror, and both of us sort of loved it. And now it's become a little more, right? It's become this idea of, in the world we're living in, getting political for 1 second, there's like this, you know, that we are, as others or as Americans, that we can be subjected to the right or this religious or righteousness from political entities. Mm-hmm. And the idea that Skeet Ulrich and I can stand in front of people and say, we're these, you know, these characters were gay, you can't take it away from us. And if there's a queer kid out there somewhere in the world who sees us say that and feels emboldened in their own journey, then that's why we're doing it. I don't really know if they're gay. It doesn't really matter to me. What matters is that if some kid out there wants us to be gay, then we're gay.
Right.
Right? And this idea that, you know, I got a lot of blowback at some point about saying they're the first husbands of horror. They're not. And there's plenty of examples of it before. But in this moment, it's really about like standing chest out saying there's nothing you can say about it.
Yeah.
You can't take it away from
I also appreciate as someone who both writes but also watches a lot of movies when actors and filmmakers allow for people to like, this gets to be yours too.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
Allowing for us to have those interpretations. Because like I watch a lot of things and then people are like, it means this and it means this and it means this. And I like when people are able to have the space to like have those concepts.
Yes, it's their connection to it.
Yeah.
Like, if your story is that these two characters are gay and it empowers you.
Yeah.
Great. it's great.
And like, I am curious because like you said before that you were at one point in talks or were going to come back for Scream 3.
Yes.
And like that, like not to get too into the darkness of that, but like I was in school when Columbine happened, and like it really changed the barometer in pop culture, and even just the barometer being a teenager, where like people were afraid of us in a way. Like I literally got called into the principal's office because they wanted to look at what comic books I had in my bag.
Because of your spooky sweater.
Yes. I went to a Catholic school.
They'll do it.
Yeah.
They'll do
they were
it.
like, what is this?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
We've seen you watch movies.
Exactly.
You're a freak.
Yeah, and so like I'm curious, like what, like, because there was a point where he was going to come back. So in that incarnation, Stu was alive.
Yes.
And then because of that, the whole script changed.
Yeah, well, the whole script got thrown out. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole thing was, I actually don't know if there was actually a script, to be honest, but we made a deal. I owed Dimension a movie after that. They paid me the whole 9 yards. And then Columbine High School happened, and it changed the whole demeanor of the script. It changed everything for the script. So I actually don't know if there's actually a script ever written, to be honest.
So basically they got you on board and they're like, and now we're going to pitch.
Yeah, and then we had to throw out the idea.
That's interesting.
But but he was alive.
Yeah. Yeah, because in 6 I don't know if you've rewatched these recently, but in 6 there's a yarn wall and it's like dead in 1996.
Yeah.
Because my partner and I have been arguing about how you're involved in the new movie, and he's
I
like,
think the Radio Silence guys were really doing a great job of setting up him coming back.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of Easter eggs.
that's what I said.
Yeah.
I was like convinced. I thought I've said this off camera. I thought you were coming back in 5. Like one of my co-writer, like one of my collaborators on this site would like had me 100% convinced.
Yeah.
Like not till the credits rolled.
I
I was
think
like,
I was in 5. I think I'm the ghost face in 5. with
You're
the
in a party scene
flamethrower.
like you were in Scream
Yeah,
2.
exactly. Well, I'm the flamethrower. The guy, I'm the voice of that. So
you're like you're doing the Ryan Johnson thing where JGL comes in and just does a voice in the back.
Oh yeah. I'm literally in 4 of the 7 movies.
Is it 4? I know
Well-
you hear your audio in 3. You're in 2 in like a background.
Well, 1, 2, 5. I'm that silver face ghost killer.
Right.
And then 7. I am in 7.
I do know you're in 7. How? Only
nobody
only
knows.
via brain link.
Nobody
Tomorrow night
knows.
I'll be sitting in this movie going, oh, I was
Are you
right.
excited?
I am so excited. I truly, and I said this to you off camera.
What do you want? What do you want out of the movie?
I want to be surprised.
Okay.
Like, here's the thing, because I watch movies for a living. My Letterboxd is insane. I hit over 500 movies last year.
Wow.
And some of those are rewatches. Like, I'm not going to act like they're all original. But, like, I love watching movies, but I'm also really excited when I'm wrong. So, like, I have ideas on how, like, you're going to be involved or what the movie's going to be about. And when I can be surprised, and it, like, makes sense. Not when it's just, like, surprise! It's a totally, like, whatever. Like, now he's a robot. Like, that's a different genre for you. We're doing that elsewhere in your career right now.
Right.
I don't need you to be a robot. But, like, I like being surprised. So, like, I don't have my heart set on, like I did for 5, like, it needs to be this thing.
Right.
But for 7, I'm like, I keep rewatching the trailer, and that, as I said to you off camera, the 2 things I'm really hanging on to is 1, Sydney named her daughter Tatum, which I was not prepared for that, the way that, I was going to say guts me, and now I can't think of an alternate word. The way that shook me, that I was like, of course you would name her daughter Tatum. Because, like, that friendship felt really, that made a lot. Like, I was like a girl watching The Craft and watching Scream and be like, this is the broad version of sisterhood I understand, where you can make dark, weird jokes to your friends. Like, that felt, I connected to that. Sugar and Spice and Bring It On, happy for those girls. That was not my experience. You know, my friends and I were literally being like, so if we were in a slasher movie, who is going to be the first to die? Regularly, it was me. I'm very clumsy. They're just like, girl, you can't run for more than 5 feet without tripping. You're done. And, you know, we'll miss you. But like, so I think, yeah, I want to be thrilled, and I want to feel that excitement of the first one where I didn't know it was coming. I think that's what I want. I have a funny Scream story. I was too young to see it in theaters. So my friends and I all rented it on a summer day, and we gathered around my parents' enormous television. It was on the floor, because that's what we're talking about. It was like one of those big, huge boxes. And we had the front door of our house open. Everyone's gathered around. The boy next to me is like trying to hit on me, and I'm like locked in and just being like, what? Stop with, what is this? It was not the guy I ended up marrying. It was But anyway, and my dad came in and was like, what are you doing? And we're like, shh. And he's like, okay. And like walks out the back of the house, walks around the front, climbs the side of our porch, creeps under the windows, hears the music coming through the open front door, because summer day, waits until it hits its peak, and then jumped out to scream as this boy's trying to like put a move on me. We all screamed and jumped. That kid, I think, stopped breathing for 5 minutes. It was perfect. Like, I wasn't mad, because it was like, it worked in twofold, where it was like really conducive to the environment, but also this kid didn't like mess with me again for the rest of the day. It was like, we were like sort of dating, but it was also like, I'm locked in. We rented Scream. Stop. So it was such a perfect scenario. And then the other ones I was able to actually
What a
see
good
theaters.
dad.
Yeah.
What
That
a
was,
good
he
dad.
still remembers that. Remember the time I scaled which I think he's also proud of the time where he could scale our front porch.
Yeah, of course.
Like-
yeah. Listen, you hold on to these things as you become an older man.
Yeah. Like he was so thrilled with
I used to
himself.
be so agile. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You've had such incredible experiences, and I appreciate that you've addressed the struggle in your career, but when was there a moment where you were like, maybe not I made it, because I really appreciate that you're upfront about the fact that like it's always a journey.
Yeah.
But was there ever a moment where you got to kind of step back and just be like, I'm here right
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, a couple things. I mean, certainly, look, getting dressed up with my whole family, going to the premiere of Life of Chuck at Toronto International Film Festival was really lovely. My kids had never really been to a movie that I was in.
Sure.
I was really big in the 90s, quote unquote, really big, but I was, most of my work in the 90s was film, and they weren't around.
Sure.
So getting everyone dressed up, buying nice things for everyone to wear, and then going was really, really lovely. And sitting in that audience that we talked about, I mean, it was like, that was an incredible moment. I will say that the relationship that I've developed with Mike Flanagan, since then, like going to do Carrie and feeling seen by a director that I really respect and like, that to me is like one of the most powerful things that's ever happened in my career, because I feel like I'm wanted.
Yeah.
And so much of your career is like you're fighting for jobs and you're negotiating money, and you're like, I am worth getting paid,
Yeah.
and I've been doing it a long time. I bring a lot to a set. I bring a lot to a piece of work, and like having to convince people that are in charge of money, that's always humiliating. But the point of that is like having a moment where you feel seen, and that someone like Mike wants to work with you and is like, I want to pull you into everything I'm doing, is profound and super powerful.
Sure. Especially because what a high caliber.
Yeah, he's great. And Carrie's incredible. I know
Yeah.
we're not talking about it now, but Carrie
I'm excited.
is incredible.
Yeah.
It's going to be I think people are going to lose their minds.
I'm so stoked. Well, maybe we'll have you back to talk more then.
That-
And maybe
please.
I'll ask you a question.
Please
then.
do.
Who's to say?
I hope you enjoy the movie.
I'm really
I
excited.
hope it's everything you want it to be.
I don't get like, I try not to create very strong boxes of what my expectations are, because
Yeah.
then I'm only hurting myself. But I am excited.
Listen, I play the best robot of Stu Macher you've ever seen.
Stubot 2000.
Stubot.
I'll be right back.